Hey everyone, and welcome back to another news alert. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and thank you so much for tuning into Boyd News. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more updates like this. And feel free to support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Links are in the description below the video. All right, well, happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. We made it to the end of the week. I hope you're having a fantastic day so far, and I wish you all a great weekend coming up soon. Very huge news coming out from this war overnight. We have big reports that Ukrainian drones have once again carried out massive strikes on Russia's Syzran oil refinery located in the Samara region, and a major port used to export liquefied natural gas to Russia's army was also hit down near the Kerch Bridge. Here's that new report for you on your screen. It says Ukrainian drones strike Russia's Syzran oil refinery and gas seaport. The general staff said it conducted the operation to reduce the military and economic potential of the Russian aggressor, as drones continue to target infrastructure associated with the army. So, massive drone sanctions coming down onto Russia overnight. This is a picture coming out from the Syzran oil refinery, which has been attacked, I don't know how many times this year, probably more than 10 times, but caught on fire. And we have reports that possibly multiple drones were striking the facility. I've got a new picture coming out during the day today that shows it is still on fire in multiple areas. So, huge damage being done to the Syzran oil refinery. And then also this gas seaport that we're going to talk about is located in the town of Temryuk. This is going to be right next to the Kerch Strait or the Kerch Bridge, located in the Krasnodar Krai region. Okay, this is a major port that allows a lot of cargoes to come out of there, out of Russia, but primarily used as a liquefied natural gas port. And a lot of these supplies go directly to the Russian army, especially in Crimea. So Ukraine went ahead and bombed that port down there last night. Huge fires coming from that oil terminal. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Also, other top headline news: Ukrainian drones reportedly struck a high rise skyscraper in Grozny in Chechnya, connected to government offices such as the Chechen Security Council. Also, a Russian FSB headquarters station is located very close to that building, so that could have been the initial target. Aside from that, big news out of Crimea as a new video has been released from Ukraine's primary unit showing multiple pieces of military equipment being destroyed in recent weeks, one of them being a Russian Su-24 fighter bomber. Thought that was interesting. We just had a video coming out yesterday from Ukraine's unmanned system forces showing a direct strike on a MiG-29 fighter jet down, I believe it was in Crimea. Now we've got another one being destroyed, in this case, an Su-24 fighter bomber. So huge news, guys. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. Let me start sharing all the details from this war report today. We'll start off here with Vicegrad 24 breaking. Ukraine launches another major drone swarm attack against Russia. Look at this massive attack onto Russia, guys. I feel like every day these attacks are becoming larger and larger. We're seeing right here a lot of these drones crossing through the Rostov and Voronezh and also Volgograd Oblast, heading on up over here to the Samara region where we had the Syzran oil refinery coming under attack. You can see that's where a lot of these drones were heading, even rocket drones. It's going to be this blue line right here. Some drones also crossing up through from the Sumy Oblast through the Kursk Oblast into Russia on over to Tula and Ryazan regions, but we don't have any reports of any destruction or Moscow or anything like that in these areas. But down here in the Krasnodar Krai, right next to where you see Novorossiysk down here, very close to the Kerch Bridge, and this area is where the port of Temryuk came under attack with that liquefied natural gas terminal. We'll talk about that as we move forward. And then down in Crimea over here is where we have that Su-24 reportedly being hit today. And you can see also we had a cruise missile, this green arrow, that was fired from Ukraine onto Russia overnight. Not sure exactly what it was targeting, but a lot of different targets being hit inside of Russia overnight, as we can see today. So now let's move on to military news UA. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine confirms night strikes on Temryuk Seaport, Krasnodar Krai, and Syzran Refinery, Samara region. Fire following a UAV attack, processing unit damage. And it says here additionally, the Saratov Refinery sustained significant confirmed damage. Primary processing has been halted, and the plant is currently operating at less than 50% capacity. That's very big news. We know this is a massive oil refinery located in the Samara Oblast of Russia. They're claiming that it's down to 50% capacity at operation levels due to this strike, and we had a primary processing unit most likely being hit. As it says here, primary processing has been halted, and that's usually what we see Ukraine striking. This was another picture coming out from that area overnight, showing this huge blaze coming from the facility. Massive, massive news, guys. Now from Vicegrad 24, refinery in Syzran, Russia is on fire after a drone attack. Syzran oil refinery is one of the largest in the Samara region, with a design capacity of about 8.5 million tons of crude per year. We've got a 35-second clip, guys. Go ahead and take a look at this. You're going to see an explosion over here on the left side of your screen from a direct impact from a Ukrainian drone while it's already on fire. Take a look. All right, that's pretty much it for the action on this video, but as we can see, currently a fire burning here on the facility of the Syzran oil refinery, and then another drone smashed into it over here on the side. Don't see any fire that was started due to that drone that hit over here, but clearly was hit at least more than 2 times there based on that video. Now, Tendar, more footage of an area near the Syzran refinery in the Samara region, Russia. Russian air defense tried to intercept the Ukrainian UAVs. Yeah, towards the start of this video, roll it back. You can see a lot of anti-air gunfire over into the skies, trying to take down incoming drones. You can see already a fire here coming from the facility, and lots of smoke there as well. Looks like possibly 2 fires, because there's one right there, and then there's smoke coming from this area and maybe even over here. And again, we understand that multiple drones were striking the facility. As I'm going to show you guys the daytime picture coming out today from Max 25, Syzran oil refinery as of this morning. So check this out. And yeah, it continues to burn all the way through the night. We've got 1, 2, at least 3 areas here still burning as of today. So massive hit from Ukraine overnight directly onto this facility. And again, what we're hearing, 50% capacity is what this plant is running at right now. Okay, so that's huge losses for Russia. Again, we continue to see Ukraine strike the same refineries. They're really going after Ryazan a lot. They're striking Syzran. We're also seeing sometimes the Volgograd refinery coming under attack, but it seems like Ryazan and Syzran seem to be the top ones that Ukraine is targeting lately. Now from Tendar, Ukrainian forces struck the Russian port of Temryuk, Krasnodar region. A large fire can be seen. Okay, here's the seaport terminal that came under attack. So there it is, located in the town of Temryuk, right next to the Kerch Strait and the bridge right here. And then here's Crimea. So in the Krasnodar Krai, this is what came under attack. This was a picture coming out from a video showing a huge blaze coming from the facility, and I've got videos to show you today. Here's one of them right here. Ozin Technical. Ukrainian forces successfully hit a Russian natural gas terminal at the port of Temryuk this evening, setting the facility ablaze. Seeing here, a massive fire rises above the area. So isn't it just absolutely crazy what Ukraine and Russia is doing to each other, hitting all these critical infrastructure facilities, okay? We know that Russia is hitting a lot of Ukraine's energy grids. A lot of their thermal power plants have already been struck, some of them destroyed. We just talked about one down in Kherson yesterday. One of their major thermal power plants down there is completely wiped out. Probably going to take some time to repair it. There's tens of thousands of people living in the without electricity or without gas down there. So here's a major seaport terminal being struck. I'm sure that's going to be massive losses for Russia as well, as they're not going to be able to export any liquefied natural gas from this terminal. Now from Igor Sushko, Russia, Ukrainian drone struck the 145-meter Grozny city skyscraper, which houses the Chechen Security Council and other government offices in occupied Chechnya. Okay, so Chechnya going to be down far southwestern Russia. We've talked about Chechnya just the other day. Chechnya came under attack by Ukrainian drones. We had a major headquarters for an FSB facility that came under attack and was struck, burned to the ground. Now we have this facility being hit, a high-rise skyscraper over here connected to the Chechen Security Council and other government offices. And again, as I mentioned earlier, apparently nearby here, there's also a Russian FSB headquarters that could have been the initial target Ukraine was going after. Maybe they didn't mean to hit this building, but regardless, it is connected to their Security Council. Take a look at this. All right, now what's interesting about this story is today the Chechnyan authorities are staying very quiet about this, even though it's all over the news. There's videos floating around everywhere, pictures coming out, massive fire here on this skyscraper, and huge damage. But yeah, they're not really claiming, any strikes or really talking about it at all. They're staying very quiet about this attack, which I thought was extremely interesting. So let me know what you think on that. Here's one more now. Maria Drutska. It appears that there was some unexpected renovation to the Grozny City Business Center overnight. Recall that Grozny City was one of the designs for the new 500 ruble bill, with a vote that turned into a debacle for the Kremlin. I fixed it for them. What do you guys think? And check this out right here. So the 500 ruble bill inside of Russia apparently has this building on it. And Maria Drutska decided to add some little Photoshop here showing smoke coming from the building and currently a huge hole in the side of it, just like matching what we see right there. Thought that was kind of funny that she decided to do that. But yeah, it is apparently listed on the 500 ruble bill for Russia. So interesting coming out today. If I get more information on this story, I'll let you guys know. Look at all these other windows that got blown out over here on the opposite side of the building. Now, Anton Gerashenko, primary unit of the Ukrainian Defense Intelligence, has destroyed 8 Russian targets in Russian-occupied Crimea. Ghost drones hit an Su-24 frontline bomber, an antenna and a radio-transparent dome, a 39N6 Costa TE 2E2 radar station, an Orion UAV, 248 YA6 K1 Podolyet radar stations, a freight train, and a Ural of Russian troops. Okay, so lots being hit here. Take a look at this video here. Let's go ahead and let it roll. I believe what's inside of here is going to be that radio antenna inside that dome. And then we've got another target here coming under attack in just a moment. Here it is right here. This looks like one of these radar stations that is deployed on the Russian forces. And then we've got another one here. Looks like another radar tower that was hit. And then this right here, I believe, is going to be an Orion UAV. I was really looking at this. I couldn't really tell what this is, but I believe that is that. If I'm wrong about that, you guys let me know. But I believe that is an Orion UAV. And then look right here, just before it switches to a new scene, it looks like it was completely flattened because here's some sort of like tent makeup right there. If we roll this back just a little bit, we can see that tent right there. And then once it switches scenes, we can see this thing has been completely flattened and destroyed. So it looks like that Orion UAV was taken out there. Got some Russian forces running through the fields over here, getting away from this attack drone coming in, striking another piece of equipment. Here's another radar coming under attack. I mean, look at all these direct hits from these drones. We've got a railway station and a Urals truck getting hit there. Absolutely crazy. And then an Su-24 fighter bomber direct hit there on the base of that piece of aircraft. So crazy news, guys. Ukraine's primary unit been striking so many different pieces of Russian equipment down here in Crimea recently. Now moving on to Savchenko Volodymyr. Trump says we are looking for another option for a settlement between Russia and Ukraine. If possible, and I think we will eventually achieve it, this has to be stopped. We are working very hard on this. This was Trump last night holding an address, and that's what he stated here, that apparently they're looking for another option. So I wonder what that option is going to be. You guys let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think Trump is going to be planning here? Is this going to be some sort of pressure onto Ukraine next? I don't really know what's going to happen. Is the United States going to pressure Russia? I think that's highly unlikely. If anything, we're probably going to see more pressure being put onto Zelensky. But apparently they are looking for another option right now, as obviously the peace talks have failed once again, and Russia basically rejected this peace deal and is not going to agree to it. Now, Spravdy Stratcom Center, in the past week, Russia has blocked FaceTime, WhatsApp, Snapchat, and Roblox. Already blocked our X, Instagram, Discord, Facebook, Signal, LinkedIn, YouTube, selectively blocked. What is the Russian dictator afraid of? Yeah, it's not interesting. I haven't been talking about this a whole lot. I don't feel like this is like super big news. We've been seeing Russia kind of going ham with taking out a lot of major services in Russia, especially a lot of communication services, even Roblox, which is just a gaming platform. They're starting to block a lot of things over there. So what do you guys think is going on? Why is Russia blocking all these apps? What are they so concerned about? Are they afraid that some of these apps are going to be used to carry out some sort of attack onto Russia? Or is it more of an information control thing inside of Russia? What do you think is going on here? Pretty interesting news today. Now, Kyiv Independent. Russian President Putin has declared Ukraine must withdraw its forces from the eastern Donbass region, or Moscow will seize it by force, he warned on December 4th. So, what is Donbass and why is Russia so obsessed with it? Okay, this was Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, stating this yesterday while he was in India meeting with the Prime Minister Modi over there. Okay, he said that Moscow will seize the Donbass by force if Ukraine does not withdraw. All right, so how long is it going to take him to do that? Nobody really knows. But we know right now the Russians are pressing forward in certain areas of the Donetsk region. It's not looking good for Ukraine, okay? It could collapse a lot quicker than we expect. But so far, Ukraine's still fighting pretty hard over there. But yeah, this is something that Putin did state yesterday. Let me know your thoughts on that. Now, Noel reports Slovenia will join the PURL initiative and provide around 43 million euros by year's end to boost Ukraine's air defenses. Defense Minister Shmyhal called it a vital step to strengthen Ukraine's air defense capabilities amid continued Russian attacks. All right, pretty good news here. Slovenia is a NATO nation. They have joined the PURL initiative to purchase weapons directly from the United States, have them sent over to Ukraine. Okay, so they've allocated 43 million euros by the end of the year to help out with Ukraine and their air defense team. So awesome news to hear coming out from Slovenia today. Now check this out, Sean Pinner. UK ready to allocate £8 billion from frozen Russian assets to Ukraine, according to the Times. Here's a report. UK bids to unlock $8 billion of frozen Russian assets to aid Ukraine. Okay, so the UK is moving forward with their own version of trying to tap into frozen Russian assets directly out of the UK. They want to get about £8 billion of it and hand it over to Ukraine. We're still hearing about the EU as well. The EU is trying to dip into over 100 million euros. Billion euros, excuse me, to hand over to Ukraine as well, but they're hitting some major roadblocks with Brussels and Belgium. Belgium is really trying to block that right now. They're concerned about the state of their own economy if they decide to move forward with that. So there's obviously issues there we've been discussing, but the UK is trying to do whatever they can, tap into their own funds of these Russian assets and hand them to Ukraine. So that's pretty big news. We'll see how that goes. Now, Visioner, according to Friedrich Merz, there are people in America who want to gain economic benefits from a possible agreement to end the war with Russia. Today, the German Chancellor will hold an unsanctioned meeting with the Prime Minister of Belgium in a private lunch format to discuss the possible use of frozen Russian assets for Ukraine in the form of a reparation credit. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will also attend this meeting. So Ursula von der Leyen and Friedrich Merz trying to convince Belgium to drop their opposition to hand these frozen Russian assets over to Ukraine. You know, we could see anywhere from like 165 billion euros upwards of, I think, like 200 something billion. I forget the exact numbers, but it's pretty significant amount for Ukraine. And again, Belgium is blocking that right now, so Friedrich Merz is trying to head over there. So in regards to what it talks about here, where it says there are people in America who want to gain economic benefits from a possible agreement to end the war. If you guys remember, the initial U.S. peace plan talked about the U.S. getting something like $50 billion of the frozen Russian assets. There's also been some reports coming out that some officials are trying to get some of these Russian assets to be transferred over to the U.S. But apparently Friedrich Merz is warning that certain people in the U.S. are trying to get a kickback out of this deal, that's why they want this war ended so quickly as well, is because they're going to get probably potentially millions, if not billions of dollars through this deal with utilizing these frozen Russian assets. And I think that's also why we're seeing some reports of, Belgium, for example, wanting to block this, that maybe there's a lot of pressure coming from people in the U.S. to block this from happening. We're going to talk about this. Remember this story, because I've got another story to tie into this in just a moment. We're going to keep moving, though. Now, end strike within the framework of international efforts to increase pressure on Putin. United Kingdom is attempting to mediate an agreement with the European Union and other countries, including Canada, which could potentially free up £100 billion for military assistance for Ukraine, the Times reports. So I'm not sure if this is all tied into the same frozen Russian assets, or maybe some of it is, some of it isn't, but apparently they're trying to allocate £100 billion for Ukraine also. This is including European Union, the UK, and Canada. They're trying to set up some sort of program to fund Ukraine here very soon. So I think regardless, wherever this money comes from, whether it's funded by the EU, whether it's funded by frozen Russian assets, we're going to see some sort of major, probably the largest military package for Ukraine being announced collectively within the EU. They're definitely planning something big here. We're probably talking well over 100 billion euros for Ukraine. Now, Bliskovka, the U.S. has suspended part of the sanctions against Russian Lukoil, extending the special license for the company's foreign gas stations until the end of April 2026. U.S. Treasury explained this is necessary to avoid disruptions in the fuel markets where Lukoil has a significant presence. At the same time, the main sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft remain in effect. The postponement only applies to the operation of gas stations outside of Russia. Okay, this was big news being announced yesterday. We've got the U.S. lifting sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft, or at least Lukoil, excuse me, and some of their foreign gas stations that are located outside of Russia. They've lifted sanctions on those, and they're apparently saying it has to do with protecting, consumers in certain areas located in other parts of the world. We know that Lukoil's got a lot of foreign assets located outside of Russia, so not good to see that the U.S. is lifting some sanctions. Definitely going to help Lukoil a little bit here. And we know that they've been hit really hard by these sanctions, but you guys can let me know what you think about this. Are you for these sanctions being lifted on Lukoil, or do you think these sanctions should have been kept applied onto Lukoil? Now, for military news UA, European leaders advised Zelensky not to agree to a peace deal without American security guarantees, according to the Wall Street Journal. European leaders have issued a stark warning to the president of Ukraine: do not yield to Russia's demands without ironclad security guarantees from the U.S. All right, so it looks like Zelensky might be contemplating trying to give in to Russia's demands with some of these stories coming out like this. Hopefully that would never be the case, but obviously Zelensky's under a lot of pressure, and his European partners are warning him, do not give in to Russian demands, don't sign a peace agreement without getting ironclad security guarantees from the U.S. We keep hearing also Macron and I think Merz have been warning that the U.S. could completely just force Ukraine into a position where they need to agree to a settlement with Russia, possibly even give up the Donbass, and they're not going to get any security guarantees. So I think that's kind of what they're talking about here. We heard some reports about that yesterday. There's definitely a political rivalry going on between Europe and the United States right now, and really not good to see all at a time where Ukraine's under heavy attack. Russia's being the major aggressor inside of Ukraine. Russia does not want to end the war. The U.S. and Europe needs to stay united. Right now, we are not seeing that. We're seeing a great division between the U.S. and Europe right now. Hopefully that will turn around in the near future. But, coming from the U.S. standpoint, I really don't see them, changing the way that they have an outlook on this war. They just want this war over with, and they don't really care to benefit Ukraine. It seems like they more want to benefit Russia. Now that I told you guys to remember that story, take a look at this from Jürgen Nodit. Trump's betrayal is getting worse and worse. According to Bloomberg report from December 5th, 2025, the U.S. government has urged several EU countries to block EU plans to use frozen Russian central bank assets, approximately 210 billion euros in Europe, as collateral for a reparations loan to Ukraine. This loan is intended to provide Ukraine with up to 90 billion euros over 2026 to 2027 to help close funding gaps and maintain its defenses. Here's a report. U.S. urged Europeans to oppose a EU plan for a loan to support Ukraine. Okay, so what I'm hearing behind this is the reason why the U.S. is urging Europeans to oppose this EU plan for this loan using frozen Russian assets is because they believe that it could possibly destroy the opportunity for Ukraine, or excuse me, for Russia to agree to a peace deal with Ukraine, that it'll create problems there because obviously Russia's going to be very upset. We've already seen that. They've come out stating that, they will retaliate if Europe decides to use their frozen Russian assets for Ukraine. So that's the reason why the U.S. is complaining about this or trying to push Europeans to oppose this. But again, there's that whole story that Friedrich Merz is warning about, that there's certain people in the U.S. that are trying to make money out of this deal. Okay, so it's just crazy to even be talking about this, but I want you guys to be aware of this whole situation. It looks like there's a lot of fishy things happening with this. Some people are trying to make some big bucks just by ending this war in Ukraine. Now, Bliskovka, today NSDC Secretary Umerov and Chief of General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Natov, are to hold another meeting with Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Kushner, according to UP. Okay, so apparently we had some talks ongoing yesterday. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner were having some talks with the National Security Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umarov, and then we've got Natov here, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's going to be the chief of staff of the armed forces of Ukraine. Yeah, they had talks yesterday, and what we're hearing, there's going to be ongoing talks again today. I think right now these two are currently in Miami to meet with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They've been there since yesterday or the day before. Still going to be having more talks today. So if we get some big details regarding the peace plan today, I'll let you guys know. Now, Andriy Sybiha, the foreign minister out of Ukraine, 31 years ago on this day, the Budapest Memorandum was signed, a piece of paper that has become synonymous, with a failed security arrangement. Having had such a bitter experience in the past, Ukraine does not trust empty pledges anymore. We trust the strength of our army and weapons. Today, Ukraine needs robust security guarantees for a real, just, and lasting peace. As we work to put an end to Russia's war against Ukraine, it is important to remember the bitter lessons of Budapest. Okay, so talking about the U.S. here, right? And this whole Budapest Memorandum, where Ukraine basically in the 90s gave up their nuclear weapons over to Russia, and Russia, along with the U.S., the U.K., multiple other nations, signed the Budapest Memorandum to protect Ukraine if they were ever to be coming under attack. Obviously, nuclear weapons prevent attacks, right? And if Ukraine had these nuclear weapons, would they have been attacked by Russia? Probably not, is what I'm thinking. But Ukraine's still saying they need robust security guarantees because they don't have these nuclear weapons anymore. They gave them up, which was a huge mistake under the Budapest Memorandum. They're saying that they need real security guarantees because they can't just trust people's words or a simple document anymore. They need real security guarantees, and primarily from the United States. So today they're celebrating 31 years of when the Budapest Memorandum was signed, and it did not help Ukraine in this situation when they came under attack. Now, here's a huge report from Max 25. The United States has updated its national security strategy. The main interest of the U.S. is to stop the war in Ukraine as well as to ensure the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine for its survival. European relations with Russia will require significant diplomatic involvement of the U.S., both to restore the conditions of strategic stability throughout the Eurasian continent and to reduce the risk of conflict between Russia and the United States. If you don't understand what that means, basically the U.S. is saying they want to restore relations with Russia. Okay, that's one of their major goals right now. Stop the war and restore relations with Russia. And it seems like they're trying to get Europe to restore relations with Russia as well. America wants NATO to cease to be perceived as an ever-expanding alliance. That's a big one. They don't want NATO to expand. U.S. wants Europe to take responsibility for ensuring its own defense. We know about that already. And the U.S. administration is at odds with European officials, many of whom trample on democratic norms. U.S. no longer considers the Middle East to be a dominant factor in its foreign policy. The Indo-Pacific region will be the battlefield of some of the key geopolitical and economic battles of the century. And the U.S. should focus on trade with China only on non-strategic goods. So it seems like the U.S. going to be focusing more on the Indo-Pacific region now near China. That's what we keep hearing, that the U.S. wants to move a lot of troops away from Europe. That's why they're also calling on Europe to take responsibility for ensuring their own defense that it talks about right here. But again, some of the big ones here, calling for the war in Ukraine to end. And then on top of that, they want to restore ties with Russia. Okay, that's their national security strategy coming from the Trump administration, guys. Let me know how you feel on these details. Again, I really think that the United States cares more about Russia's best interest than they do, especially with this kind of strategy coming out, right? They want to restore relations with Russia. They're not going to do anything to force Russia to end this war. If anything, I think they're going to most likely pressure Ukraine. But we'll have to see. I could be completely wrong about that. You guys let me know your thoughts on that. Now from Faytuk's Network, NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe, General Grinkwich. Grinkwich said the continent can withstand a reduction in the 85,000 U.S. troops stationed there. Citing strong European and Canadian capabilities, comments come as U.S. shifts focus to Asia and Russia escalates hybrid threats. Here's a statement from Alexander Grinkwich, the commander, NATO Supreme Allied Commander, in Europe. He says, "I'm confident in the capabilities of Europe and Canada," the four-star U.S. general said at the alliance's sprawling military operational command in southern Belgium. "We're ready today to meet any crisis or contingency." Okay, so him coming out and saying, He's very confident with the European militaries that even if the U.S. starts to withdraw support over there, they will be just fine. They're ready to counter any hybrid threats from Russia as the U.S. shifts its focus over to Asia. And here's another report coming out from him as well, from Visioner, the commander of the U.S. Army's European Command and NATO's Combined Joint Task Force, General Alexis Grinkwich, of Belarusian Ukrainian origin, announced that NATO must be ready to respond to growing hybrid threats aimed at destabilizing member states. By the way, if I said Alexander earlier, I meant Alexis. Sorry, guys. This tactic, including cyber attacks, targeted disinformation, infrastructure sabotage, drones, irregular forces, is increasing across the entire Europe. Greenwich noted that some recent incidents were carefully orchestrated, that Russia's behind them. Wow, that's a huge statement coming out from him. So Greenwich stating that they need to get ready. Okay, they need to be ready for responding to growing hybrid threats that are aimed at destabilizing NATO member states. Okay, so we've been seeing that NATO is taking a more active approach. I'm going to show you guys a report coming out from France today, later on this evening. Lots happening inside of Europe, especially with these drones being spotted and everything. So this is him stating that, NATO needs to get ready. They need to start preparing for more of these hybrid threats, start reacting to them. And I think we're going to start to see that as we move forward. And it would not surprise me that we start to see more escalation from NATO's side, especially if this war with Ukraine ends. Now, military news UA, Mikhail Fedorov is the main candidate for the position of the head of the office of the president of Ukraine. Sources from the Ukrainian Pravda reported as of Thursday evening. The decision was almost final, but on a Friday morning, the president is still weighing it. So Mikhail Fedorov, we talked about him before. He should be a Ukrainian politician, and apparently he could be possibly taking over for Andriy Yermak. We know that Andriy Yermak just about a few days ago or last week or so, he stepped down due to some reports that there was like major anti-corruption agencies that were raiding his home, and due to all the pressure and everything, he decided to step down. He actually headed over to the front line last we knew. That's the last report I had from him. But now that position obviously needs to be filled. So it looks like Mikhail Fedorov could be taking up that position here very soon, but it has not been confirmed yet. Now, NOAA reports overnight Russia launched 137 attack drones, including nearly 90 Shaheeds from multiple directions. Ukraine's air defenses, electronic warfare units, and mobile groups downed or jammed 80 of them. Still, 57 drones hit 13 locations across the country. So this is probably some of the worst numbers we've seen in quite a while. Only 80 out of 137 being destroyed, and a good 57 of them crossing through and hitting their targets inside of Ukraine. Not good to see. I wonder why they weren't able to take out as many of them. But something that we have been reporting recently is that a lot of these Russian drones are actually attacking Ukraine's air defense teams. We've seen, we just saw a video the other day that I showed you guys of a Ukrainian air defense team. They had like a machine gun mounted on a truck, and this drone came and slammed directly into it. We also had reports recently over the last week that Russia's starting to mount R-60 air-to-air missiles on top of some of their Shaheeds as well to combat Ukrainian helicopters. So I'm not sure if maybe Russia's having some success in that regard, going after Ukrainian air defense teams, but I would expect to see some sort of effect with Ukraine's air defense teams taking down these drones. We might see these numbers start to dip now that we know Russia's going after Ukraine's air defense. Now, Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of December 5th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And it says here Russia's losses as of December 5th, 1,240 troops, 1 AFV, 94 vehicles and fuel tanks, 0 tanks, 34 artillery systems, 424 UAVs, 2 MLRS, and 2 special equipment. And also 1 plane that's probably going to be that MiG-29, that was struck down in Crimea just in the past week or so. We talked about that yesterday. 2 special equipment being destroyed and 2 multiple launch rocket systems. Good to see here. We usually see about 1 or 2 of these per day, back up to 2. 34 artillery systems, these numbers starting to climb again. These were sitting at like 10 to 15 for well over a week. Now we're starting to see it jump back up to 30 or 40, which is what we typically see. Tanks and AFVs, pretty much nothing today. Only one AFV, 94 vehicles and fuel tanks, dropping back down again. We were up to about, I think, 126 yesterday, but typically been seeing about 75 to 80 on average. So a little bit higher than the average compared to the last few weeks, but still pretty low numbers there. Troop losses, though, still sitting at right around 1,200. I feel like this is going to be the new normal that we're seeing, at least for right now. Over the last week, it's been sitting at about 1,100. Just prior to that, we were seeing about 800-900. So we're definitely seeing more troop losses, and we know the Russians are attacking a lot, especially in the Donetsk region right now. So I expect these numbers to stay elevated for some time. So guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in for today's update on December 5th, 2025, and I hope you all have a wonderful Friday out there. Take care and be safe. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.